Hi everyone, and welcome to The Sleepy Scientist. I'm really happy you're here. Tonight, we're going to go on a calm and quiet trip to learn something amazing. So get comfy, take a deep breath, and let's enjoy this peaceful science story together. Before we start, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from and what time is it for you right now? If you like relaxing science videos, don't forget to tap the like button. Now let's begin. Before fire ever reached the sky, before oceans knew how to rise and fall, there was a stone in the dark. It did not burn, it did not shine. It drifted in the great hush, following the earth like a quiet echo. This was the moon, not yet glowing, not yet watching, not yet remembered. It was simply there, a companion to a world still finding its breath, and in that silence it waited. The moon has no light of its own. It is not a lantern. It does not blaze like the sun or sparkle like stars. Instead, it is a mirror, gentle, pale, patient. What you see glowing in the sky is not moonlight at all. It is Earth's story reflected back. Sunlight caught and sent to us again, bent by dust and softened by distance. And somehow, in that borrowed light, it feels more tender, more human. Imagine standing in the night, your feet on the soil, your face turned to the sky. The stars flicker coldly, but the moon glows like memory. That glow is not light that burns, it is light that listens. It touches the tops of trees and the curve of rivers, it brushes rooftops and silent fields. And long ago, it began with nothing but rock. Scientists believe the moon was born from Earth herself. In the early chaos of the solar system, something vast collided with our young planet. From that impact, dust and stone were flung into orbit. They did not scatter forever. They circled and gathered, pulled together by the quiet insistence of gravity. Slowly, a sphere began to take shape. A new world formed from the bones of Earth. And though it drifted away, it never truly left. It still follows, still listens. When sunlight strikes the moon's surface, the light scatters, not evenly, not brightly, but softly. It hits ancient craters, powdery dust, frozen ridges. Some of it bounces back toward Earth, and we call that reflection moonlight. But there is something more. On certain nights, when the moon turns just right, it catches a different glow, Earthlight. This is when light reflected from Earth reaches the moon, and then bounces back to us. It is our own brightness, shining into the dark and finding its way home. This is not something your eyes catch easily. You might see it as a faint glow on the shadowed part of the crescent moon, a dim, ghostly circle where the sun doesn't shine. Sailors called it the old moon in the new moon's arms, poets called it ashen light, astronomers call it earthshine. But no matter the name, it is a moment when our world glows softly across space, and the moon becomes a mirror, not just of light, but of us. The moon's surface is strange. It is covered in fine dust, regolith, that holds the footprints of astronauts and the marks of meteor impacts that happened millions of years ago. There is no wind to erase them, no rain to wash them away. The moon remembers everything. Every scar remains. Every mark is a frozen whisper from the past. When light touches this dust, it glows in different ways depending on its angle. That's why the moon seems to change shape, to wax and wane. But the moon itself doesn't change. Only how we see it does. This shifting light has guided lives for as long as memory stretches. Before clocks, before calendars, before written time, people watched the moon to measure days. It rose and faded in patterns, quiet but faithful. It marked the rhythm of planting, the return of tides, the timing of birth. Some cultures carved lunar calendars from stone. Others lit fires to honour its phases. And always, they wondered why it glowed. Even today, some children believe the moon follows them home. And in a way it does. It watches quietly as cities fall asleep. It floats above deserts and forests, oceans and rooftops, always turning, always glowing with borrowed grace. It does not speak, but somehow it tells stories of gravity and geology, of time and reflection, of earth and sky and the space between. So how did the moon learn to glow? Not with its own fire, not with its own light, but with ours. It gathers the sunlight that first warmed our planet, the earthshine we send unknowingly across the void, and it turns it into something soft, something familiar, something that feels like a lullaby. And in that quiet light we see ourselves, not as we are under the sun, but as we are in dreams. Because in the end, the moon doesn't shine to be seen, it shines to remind us we are never alone in the dark. Now imagine drifting even closer, past the haze of clouds and the rush of air, floating toward the moon as though on a breath. It does not pull you in the way Earth does. It has no wind, no song of trees, no scent of oceans. And yet there is something welcoming about it, something ancient. The moon has been turning for over 4 billion years, and every turn is a slow, quiet story written in light and stone. The moon's face is not smooth. It wears the history of collisions, bowl-shaped craters, jagged ridges, seas of dark lava rock called Maria. These seas are not water, but ancient plains of basalt where molten rock once spilled across the surface. Long ago, these lava flows cooled and hardened, leaving behind flat, dark patches that you can still see from Earth. People once believed they were oceans. Sailors charted them. Dreamers named them. The Sea of Tranquility, the Ocean of Storms, the Lake of Dreams. Even in science, the moon makes room for poetry. This surface, so still and soundless, is not as lifeless as it seems. The moon dances with light in ways no earthly thing can. When sunlight strikes the lunar dust, it scatters, bouncing in every direction, glowing more strongly at certain angles. Scientists call this the opposition surge, a sudden brightness that appears when the sun is directly behind the observer. It is as if the moon briefly leans forward, offering its light more openly, almost knowingly. This optical phenomenon is part of why the full moon feels so luminous, so overwhelming, even though it shines with only reflected light. And the moon does more than glow, it pulls. It holds Earth in an invisible dance. The gravity of the moon tugs on our oceans, lifting them ever so slightly, drawing them outward into tides. Twice a day the sea stretches toward the moon, then sinks back. And this pull is not just water, it reaches into the land, into the atmosphere, into the core of our spinning planet. Without the moon, our days would be shorter, our seasons wilder, our axis unstable. It is not simply a light in the night, it is a steady hand in the chaos of the cosmos. This gravitational bond is ancient and precise. As the moon pulls on Earth, Earth pulls on the moon too. Over millions of years this pull has slowed the moon's spin until one side always faces us. The other side, the far side, remains turned away, not hidden by shadows but by rhythm. It is not darker, it is just unseen. When we look at the moon, we always see the same familiar face, the same craters, the same bright scars, the same silent eyes. And yet the moon changes, not in shape but in light. It moves through phases: new moon, crescent, first quarter, gibbous, full, then waning, then darkness again. This cycle lasts about 29.5 days, a quiet loop of reflection and return. In each phase, the moon becomes a different kind of mirror, catching the sun from a new angle, showing us another version of the same old face. It is a lesson in patience, in perspective, in how something can remain unchanged and still appear entirely new. On some nights when the moon is full and high, the light seems almost too bright for reflection. It casts shadows, it bleaches the sky, it hushes the stars, but even then, it is not its own light. It is sunlight, turned soft by distance. The moon takes what would burn and makes it glow. It does not compete with the sun. It does not try to be more than it is. It simply reflects, and in doing so, becomes unforgettable. Earthlight is harder to see, but it is always there. It happens during a crescent moon, when the shadowed side still holds a subtle glow. That glow is our own planet, shining across space. Earth reflects light much more strongly than the moon. Covered in oceans, clouds, forests, and snow, Earth sends a dazzling glow into the sky. From the moon, Earth looks blue and white and bright enough to read by. And when that light falls back on the moon, we catch a glimpse of our world's gentle echo. In a way, Earth and moon are in constant conversation, not with words, but with pull and reflection, with gravity and light. They orbit one another in a careful balance, locked in a slow waltz that has lasted for eons. And we, standing on Earth, get to watch. We see only the light, not the language, but the message is there all the same. Some scientists study the moon to understand time itself. The craters and ridges hold records older than any fossil. untouched by weather or life. By studying the patterns of impact, the chemistry of rocks, the layering of dust, we can glimpse the early solar system as it was, chaotic, crowded, still forming. The moon is a museum of deep time, and in its stillness we read the story of movement. Others look to the moon for the future, as a place to return, to explore, to learn how to live beyond Earth. The same dust that scatters sunlight might one day be used to build shelters. The same silence that once held mystery might soon hold human breath. But even as we reach outward, the moon continues to glow quietly, reminding us that not everything must burn to shine. You might never walk on the moon, you might never see Earthlight with your eyes, but you have already felt the moon's touch. In the turning of tides, the rhythm of sleep, the hush that comes when the sky grows silver. Its glow is woven into the way we live. It lingers in lullabies, in stories, in dreams. And though we sometimes forget to look up, it is always there, reflecting light back to us. Not loudly, not brightly, just enough to say, "You're seen, you're part of this dance. You too can shine, softly, and still be whole." Let's drift deeper now, not into the moon itself, but into what it means to us. For the moon does not just orbit in the sky. It orbits in our stories, our symbols, our sense of time. Long before we knew it was a lifeless world, we gave it feelings. We called it lonely. We called it wise. We shaped myths around its changes, tales of gods and goddesses, of wolves and love, of lunacy and longing. The moon, without ever speaking, has said so much to us, and maybe that is what reflection truly is, not just bouncing back light, but returning meaning. Because when we look at the moon, we do not only see craters and dust, we see connection, a tether between earth and sky, a reminder that light can be quiet, that presence can be enough. We have followed it across generations, letting it guide us through harvests, journeys, and calendars. Even now, some plant seeds by the moon's phases, believing that certain crops flourish better under waxing or waning light. Whether or not the science agrees, the faith speaks of our old unbroken relationship. In modern times, we have touched the moon. Human footprints, American flags, experiments left behind. In 1969, when Neil Armstrong stepped from the lunar module and said those quiet words, "That's one small step for man," he walked on dust older than mountains. He stepped into history that had waited billions of years for someone to arrive, and yet even then the moon did not change. It did not flare or sing. It remained still. It reflected. Some astronauts described Earth from the moon as a blue marble, glowing with life, set against the deep black of space. They said it changed them to see our whole planet at once, fragile and shining, and when they looked away, the moon was still beneath their boots, solid and silent. Holding both views at once, the vividness of Earth, the hush of the moon, was like holding breath and heartbeat together, one full of life, one full of memory. And this duality, this balance, is part of what the moon teaches us, that light and dark are not enemies, that silence and presence are not the same as absence, that something without fire can still be warm if it reflects what matters. The moon glows because it listens, because it turns outward, because it shares what it receives. That is not weakness, that is grace. Children often ask if the moon follows them, and on quiet nights, when the roads are still and the stars begin to hum, it almost feels like it does. Walking beneath it, you might feel watched, not by something judging, but by something old and kind, something that has seen every sorrow and still glows, something that does not need to speak, because its light says enough. In a world that can be loud and urgent, the moon is a slow breath, a resting place for the eyes. And perhaps this is why we still paint it into lullabies, why we dream by it, why we write poems to it. It has become a symbol of what cannot be taken, a presence that asks for nothing, gives no commands, but offers comfort simply by being there. The moon does not rush the sun. It waits, it watches, it remembers. The story of how the moon learned to glow is not just a tale of dust and sunlight. It is a story of how the universe offers beauty through reflection, of how something can be made from the aftermath of collision, yet still become a beacon of calm. It reminds us that we don't need to shine on our own to be meaningful. Sometimes all we must do is receive the light and send it gently back. Think of the people who sit quietly beside others in their sorrow, who offer warmth without words, who glow without needing to be seen. They are like the moon, silent mirrors of care. They do not burn, but they help others feel less alone in the dark. Now imagine standing on Earth under a crescent moon. The bright edge curves like a whisper. The rest is shadow faintly lit by Earth's own shine. In that moment, you are part of a quiet loop of light. Sun to Earth, Earth to moon, moon to you. You are bathed in light that has travelled through 3 worlds, softened by dust, curved by gravity, coloured by oceans. You're inside a poem of reflection. And when you go inside, when the moon slips behind clouds or disappears into the day, it is not gone. It is still there, turning, still holding the tides, still remembering our footprints, still glowing with borrowed light. Because in the end, the moon's glow is not about power. It is about presence. It is about what we can become when we let light pass through us, when we accept that we are shaped by others, and when we offer that shaping back to the world with gentleness. The moon did not ask to shine. It simply turned, and in turning it began to glow. There are rhythms in the world that you cannot hear with your ears, but your body still feels them. They are not the rhythms of music or language, but something deeper, like the slow breathing of the planet itself. One of those rhythms is the tide, the gentle rise and fall of the oceans as if the earth is exhaling through water, and the one who guides that breath, that pull, is the moon. Stand on a quiet beach at dawn. The waves move in and out, not randomly, but in time with something vast and silent above. You might not see the moon during the day, but its hand is still on the sea. The ocean listens, the ocean follows. Every 12 hours or so, the water creeps upward, then falls back, drawn by an invisible thread. This movement is ancient, older than cities, older than trees. It has shaped the coastlines and carried ships, fed life and pulled it ashore. And always, it begins with the moon. Gravity is the quiet engine behind the tide. The moon's mass pulls gently on Earth, not just on land, but especially on water, which moves more freely. Wherever the moon is overhead, it tugs on the ocean beneath it, causing a slight bulge. That bulge is high tide. But here is the curious part. There's another bulge on the opposite side of the planet. Earth itself is pulled slightly toward the moon, leaving behind a second swell. So as Earth rotates, different parts of the world pass through these 2 bulges, and the tides come and go. The rhythm is soft but persistent, like a lullaby sung without sound. On most shores, there are 2 high tides and 2 low tides each day, a cycle that slips forward by about 50 minutes daily. This happens because the moon is also moving in its orbit, so each day it's slightly ahead in the sky. The sea follows, always slightly behind, always listening, always changing. But the moon is not the only one who whispers to the ocean. The sun has a voice too. Though its pull is weaker on Earth's tides than the moon's, its gravity adds a second layer to the rhythm. When the sun and moon align during full and new moons, their pulls combine and the tides grow stronger. These are called spring tides, not because of the season, but because they leap higher, stretching farther inland. When the sun and moon are at right angles, they pull against each other and the tides are gentler. These are neap tides. The ocean shifts with their balance. It responds to their quiet argument. And we, standing at the edge, can see the result without ever hearing the cause. Tides are more than just waves. They shape the very life of the sea. In coastal waters, the pull and release of tides bring nutrients to the surface, stirring the water like a spoon in tea. Tiny plankton ride the currents. Fish follow. Birds wait. Life moves to the beat of this watery breath. On tidal flats, creatures hide in the sand when the water recedes, then wake and feed when it returns. Whole ecosystems are timed to this ancient clock. Even plants listen. In salt marshes, grasses grow where tides rise and fall. They bend with the water, absorb the salt, shelter young fish. Their seeds fall into mud, carried by the tide to take root somewhere new. Mangroves do the same, anchoring their roots in rhythm with the sea's motion. Without tides, these delicate worlds would not survive. They are born of motion, sustained by it. And yet the tides do not shout, they do not hurry. They are the patient work of time and pull. Even the hardest rock must eventually soften under their touch. Cliffs crumble, beaches shift, sandbars stretch and vanish. Every shoreline you've ever seen has been shaped by this conversation between moon and sea. The water never stops moving. And in that movement it remembers. In the Arctic, tides help crack the sea ice in spring, breaking open the frozen sheets so sunlight can reach the ocean. This light feeds the plankton, which feeds the fish, which feed the seals and whales and polar bears. Far away in tropical lagoons, tides fill coral pools with fresh water and clean away debris. Without the tides, the reef would suffocate. In every corner of Earth, this pull matters. And sometimes, when the moon is closest to Earth, at a point called perigee, the tides become especially strong. People call them king tides. These tides can rise high enough to flood roads, creep into neighbourhoods, and erase the line between sea and land. But even these powerful swells are part of the same ancient rhythm. The moon leans closer, and the ocean leans back. So the next time you stand by the water, notice how it moves, not just in waves, but in time. It is not random, it is not restless, it is faithful, a rhythm older than anything we've built, a quiet reminder that we are not separate from the sky. We are part of its music. We live by its pull. Now imagine following the tide out to sea, not just with your feet, but with your thoughts. Drift past the shoreline, where waves comb the sand. Let yourself move with the water, carried not by wind, but by the slow lift and fall of the tide. Out here, far from the noise of roads and lights, the ocean breathes in ways you can feel more than hear. It rises not because it wants to, but because the moon has asked it to, gently, again and again. This connection between ocean and moon is so precise, so constant, that we use it to measure time. Long ago, before clocks ticked and calendars turned, people watched the sea. In places where the tide ruled daily life, fishing villages, island settlements, harbours, carved into the coast, knowledge of the tide was as vital as knowing the sky. They didn't just see water come and go, they saw the moon's voice in the movement, a whisper written in salt. Some of the oldest calendars are lunar. Each phase of the moon marked a moment, planting, harvest, celebration, mourning. And the tides fit into these cycles, becoming part of a world where time was not something held in the hand, but something lived through the body. Farmers felt it in the soil, sailors read it in the currents, fishers moved their nets with it, and the earth, quiet and turning, kept it all in motion. Today we map the tides with science. We can predict the rise and fall years in advance. We understand the orbital mechanics, the elliptical paths, the angular momentum, the gravitational harmonics. But even in all this the poetry remains, because knowing how something works doesn't remove its wonder, it deepens it. It's like understanding how a lullaby is written. It doesn't make the song less beautiful, it just lets you sing it along more gently. There are places on Earth where tides are especially strong, where the ocean narrows and is forced through tight spaces. In Canada's Bay of Fundy, the tides can rise over 50 feet. Whole islands disappear and reappear. Rivers reverse direction. In these places, you can see the tide moving like a slow wave across the land. You can watch the earth breathe. And there are places where the tide barely touches, small lakes, enclosed seas. Even here, though faint, the moon still pulls. The whole earth shifts slightly. The crust itself moves under the moon's pull just a little. Mountains lean, valleys sigh. The air rises and falls in a tide of its own, too gentle for the skin to feel, but measurable in instruments. This planet does not sit still. It responds, always. The moon isn't the only one watching. Our sun, too, has its tide. Its heat drives wind. Its gravity shapes Earth's path. But the moon's pull is different. It is smaller, more personal. It acts closer to the skin of the world. It doesn't burn, it doesn't force, it simply leans in. And the Earth listens. In the deep ocean, tides stir layers of water that would otherwise lie still. Cold water rises from the deep, bringing nutrients. Warm water sinks and cycles. This mixing feeds tiny plankton that bloom in spirals. Satellites, high above the Earth, can see these patterns. Green and blue swirls, blooming like breath. It is a kind of underwater weather, born from the moon's steady touch. And tides are not just in water. Inside your own body, you carry oceans, fluids that rise and fall, shift and move. Your heartbeat follows rhythms. Your sleep follows cycles. Your cells obey clocks that trace the turning of day and night, sun and shadow, moon and memory. Some scientists believe our circadian rhythms, the inner timers that govern sleep and wake, may have roots in lunar cycles. Long ago, before electric light and city noise, Our ancestors lived under the moon. Its glow, its absence shaped their nights, and perhaps in small ways it still shapes us. There are creatures who live entirely by the tide, tiny grunion fish that spawn only during certain moonlit nights, rushing ashore with the waves to lay eggs in the sand. Horseshoe crabs that gather by the thousands during spring tides, their shells clinking in the surf like old armour. Even coral reefs beneath the surface release their eggs in unison during full moons, a quiet fireworks show of life, timed by light and gravity. These are not accidents, these are agreements. The moon calls and life answers, not in words but in cycles. The tide is the meeting place, a place of change, of nourishment, of renewal. It is where sea and land touch, where time becomes visible, where gravity becomes poetry. And what happens when the moon changes? Over millions of years it slowly drifts away from Earth, about 1.5 inches each year. That means tides will become gentler, days will grow longer. This is not a thing to fear, it is part of the dance, a sign that even gravity evolves. Some say the moon was once much closer, that the tides were wild then, rising and falling with dramatic force, stirring early oceans, mixing chemicals that may have sparked life itself. If that is true, then we are not just shaped by the moon, we are here because of it. So let the tide remind you, what pulls you doesn't always drag you down. Sometimes it lifts, sometimes it carries, sometimes it leaves space so that something new can grow when it returns. The tide does not ask you to hold it, it only asks that you move with it, that you listen, that you trust its rhythm. It will return. It always does. Let yourself imagine now a world without tides, a world where the ocean never rises or retreats, where the shoreline remains fixed, unshaped, unvisited by the pull of the sky. Without tides, much of what we know, what we feel, would disappear. The quiet rhythm of the water, the cleansing of the coasts, the breath of life in the sea, all of it would fall silent. And something in us would quiet too. We often overlook the tides because they are slow. They do not crash with urgency. They do not arrive all at once, but they are always there, shaping coastlines, pulling sand from one place and placing it gently in another. Rocks worn to softness, cliffs carved to curves, harbours deepened not by machines, but by the patient hands of water and time. The tide does not rush. It trusts its return. It trusts the moon. This trust is something we can learn from, because tides are not always grand. Sometimes the change is only a few inches, barely enough to notice. Yet that small movement feeds estuaries, opens the roots of mangroves, lets air touch the mud where fiddler crabs live. A slight change can mean everything to something. We are taught to see only the dramatic, but nature reminds us that soft change, repeated faithfully, becomes transformation. Think of the tide pools, shallow bowls of ocean water left behind on the rocks when the sea draws back. In them, small creatures live whole lives, anemones that close with the shadow of a hand, tiny shrimp that dart like flickers of thought, sea stars clinging like secrets. These pools are worlds. They dry, they refill, they warm, they cool, and through it all the tide returns, again and again, like breath, like forgiveness. In human life we have tides too, not of water, but of feeling. Moods rise, fall, energy comes and goes. There are seasons of strength and seasons of stillness. Often we resist this. We think we must always be high tide, always full, always ready. But the moon teaches us otherwise. Even in its phases, waning and waxing, it shows us that change is not a flaw. It is the shape of things. Even retreat is part of return. Some coastal communities still build their lives around the tide. In parts of the world, people walk across the seafloor when the water pulls away, harvesting seaweed or setting traps. Hours later, the tide returns, covering their footsteps as if they were never there. Temples stand on rocks that become islands only at high tide. Roads vanish beneath the sea for half the day. These places do not resist the water. They wait for it. They know it will come. And even in cities, far from the sound of waves, the tide is with us. It pulls at underground rivers. It shifts groundwater. It moves the crust of the earth just enough that deep instruments can feel the flex. Our planet is elastic, breathing ever so slightly with the moon. Astronauts orbiting Earth can see tides from space, giant curved bulges of water slowly crawling along the planet's edge. And farther still, scientists now study tides on other moons and planets. On Jupiter's moon Europa, tides caused by its orbit around the gas giant may create heat beneath its icy crust, enough to keep an underground ocean liquid. Where there is tide, there may be motion. Where there is motion, there may be life. This idea that tides could shape alien oceans, stir life beyond Earth, connects us to something wider than our world. It reminds us that what we experience here is not only local, it is cosmic. The moon pulling our seas, the Earth pulling back, the sun adding its influence. All of it is a dance of massive bodies across space and time. We are not outside of this dance, we are within it. The next time you see the moon in the sky even faintly, even through haze, remember that the ocean sees it too. That water miles away is moving because of that silent orb. That right now, somewhere, the sea is returning to the shore, slipping into our harbours, filling the lungs of the world's coastlines. And later it will leave again, but only to come back. And you too are allowed that ebb and flow. You are allowed to rise, to fall, to rest, to return. The moon will not stop pulling. The sea will not stop answering. The earth will not stop turning. And somewhere in that eternal rhythm we find our place, not as watchers, but as part of it all. You do not have to be strong all the time. You do not have to shine constantly. You are made of tides. And the tide is never wrong. It simply moves. And in doing so, it reshapes the world. So let the tide wash over you, not to drown, but to remind. You are part of a rhythm older than fear, older than thought. You belong to something that whispers in waves, that reflects in silver, that rises quietly in the night to call the ocean home. Before we had mirrors, we had the moon. Before glass showed us our faces, it was the sky that offered our reflection, not in shape, but in glow. On certain nights, when the moon is a delicate crescent, its dark side still shimmers with a soft, haunting light. This light is not from the sun, it is from us. It is Earthlight, our planet's own glow, flung across space and painted gently onto the moon's shadow. In this reflection, we do not see our faces, but our presence, our breath, our being. A reminder that even the dark side can shine. The idea of Earthlight begins with something simple: reflection. Just as the moon reflects the sun's rays, Earth reflects sunlight too, off its oceans, clouds, snowfields, deserts, and forests. All of this light leaves Earth and travels outward. Some of it finds the moon, and on those nights when the sliver of the moon is visible and the rest remains dimly lit, we are seeing sunlight that touched Earth, bounce to the moon and return to our eyes. 3 steps, 3 worlds, 1 soft circle of light. What's astonishing is how much brighter Earth is than the moon. Covered in water, wrapped in clouds, and dotted with bright reflective surfaces, Earth sends out far more light than its rocky companion. From the moon, Earth appears as up to 100 times brighter than the moon looks from here. If you stood on the lunar surface, you would see our planet not as a point, but as a glowing orb, blue, white, and full of motion. Ocean swirling, storms turning, continents breathing under blankets of mist. Earthlight would cast shadows. Earthlight would shine into lunar night. And yet we rarely think of our planet as luminous. We look at the stars and feel small. We look at the moon and feel still. But Earth is neither dim nor silent. It sings in light. It sends its brightness across the void, and sometimes that light returns in the form of earthshine, a silver haze over the moon's darkened half, like a memory not yet faded. This soft glow has been known by many names. Poets have called it the new moon in the old moon's arms. Astronomers call it earthshine. Sailors once used it to navigate when the stars were lost behind clouds. And though the light itself is delicate, the science behind it tells a rich story, not just of reflection, but of connection. Earthlight changes constantly. When Earth is covered in clouds, more light is reflected. When the skies are clear, the surface absorbs more, and the glow dims. When snow covers the land, Earthlight brightens. When the forests are lush, it softens into green hues. Earthlight is a mirror of the moment. It tells what season we are in, what weather we are feeling, what colour the world wears. Even the moon's surface helps shape what we see. The moon is not polished. Its dust and rocks scatter light unevenly. Some of the Earthlight is lost in shadows, some caught in tiny grains that have not moved for millions of years. The regolith, The moon's powdery surface is made of broken stone shattered by meteors, melted and frozen, cracked and burned. It holds the light differently than anything on Earth. It dims it softens it turns it into whisper. And so, when we look at Earthshine, we are not just seeing sunlight bounced from sea to moon to sky, we are seeing our planet filtered through another world. We are seeing ourselves through a foreign mirror, and in that foreignness something familiar is born. Like a voice returning to us in echo, slightly changed, but still our own. Some scientists study Earthshine to understand Earth's climate, because this light carries clues about clouds, snow, vegetation, even pollution. By measuring how much light returns and how it changes over time, they can watch Earth's temperature and balance. They can see how our planet breathes. In this sense, the moon becomes a tool, a witness, a quiet satellite holding a mirror to our world. But you don't need instruments to feel what Earthlight means. You only need to step outside on a night when the moon is barely visible, yet not dark. Look closely. Let your eyes adjust. That gentle glow on the unlit part, that is your planet, that is your light. You are seeing the sky look back. It is a humbling thing to realize that light can travel so far, turn around and come home. That even in shadow there is brightness. That the moon, which we so often admire, is holding a piece of us in its hands. In the darkest parts of night, Earthlight reminds us that we are not only looking out into space, we are part of the light that fills it. We are not just observers, we are contributors. We send light, we send warmth, we send presence. And sometimes when the moon catches it just right, we get to see that presence shimmer quietly on a distant dusty world. Let us now drift deeper into the meaning of Earthlight, not just as a reflection, but as a reminder of who we are in the vastness of space. Every world that turns beneath a star gives off some measure of light, but Earth, with its layers of water, ice, atmosphere and life, glows in a way few planets can. This glow is not fiery or fierce, it is soft, complex, ever-changing. Like breath in the cold, it reveals more than it shows. And in that gentle light cast upon the moon, we can begin to understand the nature of our planet's own radiance. From the moon's surface, Earth never sets. Because the same side of the moon always faces our planet, Earth hovers in the lunar sky like a slow-moving lantern, rising and falling only slightly in place. For any astronaut standing on the moon, Earth would be a constant presence, a great colourful sphere, not distant like a star, but vivid. Breathing clouds swirl across continents, shadows of storms stretch over the curve of the world, blue oceans flicker like polished stone, the ice caps gleam, the deserts blush with light, and all of it glowing as one. This view is more than beautiful, it's revealing. Earthlight, when measured carefully, tells us not only about reflection, but about balance. Scientists have used lunar observations to track changes in our planet's albedo, the percentage of sunlight that Earth reflects back into space. A small shift in that reflectivity can mean large changes in global temperature. A brightening Earth reflects more heat and cools. A dimming Earth absorbs more and warms. So Earthlight becomes not just a visual echo, but a pulse, a way to measure our planet's health. Imagine the moon as a calm lake and Earth as a lantern above it. The reflection tells you how bright the lantern burns, but also how the air moves, how the surface ripples, how the night breathes. That is what Earthlight shows, 1,000 subtle details woven into a single silent glow. Some moments in history have drawn new attention to this glow. In 1993, a team of astronomers used Earthshine measurements to estimate how Earth might appear to alien observers light years away. They found that Earth would be visible as a pale blue dot, flickering with clouds and green patches. That flicker, those slight changes in brightness, would be a hint of oceans, of seasons, of perhaps even life. The idea was simple. If we can learn so much from Earthlight reflected off the moon, then perhaps other distant eyes, looking at us, could do the same. And what would they see? They would see a world that glows differently depending on what it holds. A planet wrapped in clouds that move like breath. A surface that changes colour with the growing of leaves and the melting of snow. They would see motion. Not just spinning and orbiting, but living motion. Plants responding to sunlight. Oceans responding to wind. Forests returning light in the red glow of photosynthesis. Life quietly shaping light. This light too makes its way to the moon. It is not just sunlight bounced off our planet. It is altered light, changed by every tree, every wave, every hill. Earthlight carries the fingerprint of life. The moon receives it like a silent notebook and returns it to us as earthshine. Even poets have felt this connection. When they write of the moon's glow, they often speak of longing or memory. But in Earthlight, that longing points inward. It's not the moon's memory, it's our own. Seeing our own planet's light shimmer in the lunar night is like hearing your name called softly across a field. You turn and there is no one there, only your echo shaped by distance, but still your echo. There are moments too when Earthlight grows unusually bright. After large volcanic eruptions, tiny particles rise into the atmosphere, scattering sunlight and increasing Earth's reflectivity. The moon, in turn, becomes slightly brighter during its crescent phase. Earthlight captures these changes. It records the temporary blush of ash in our skies, the cooling shadows of dust. It responds without opinion, without judgment. It simply reflects what is given. And this is the truth at the heart of all reflection. It does not lie, but it does not explain. It shows softly, and we must learn to read it. Earthlight will never speak aloud, it will never draw lines between cause and consequence, but it will glow, dimly or brightly, with whatever the planet gives it. Even human light, the soft web of cities strung across continents, makes its way into space. Astronauts on the moon would see these patterns, clusters of yellow and white stretching across the night side of Earth, and though they are not strong enough to brighten Earthlight measurably, they are still there, our touch, our fire, our flickering presence. Some scientists dream of building instruments on the moon that will one day monitor Earthlight constantly, not just for climate, but for signs of change we have yet to understand. They imagine mirrors angled just so, sensors wrapped in protection from radiation, quiet machines watching the shimmer of our home. In these dreams, the moon becomes more than a mirror. It becomes a guardian, a keeper of light. And perhaps that is how it has always been, holding the glow of our world in its ancient dust, never changing, yet always showing us what has changed. Earthlight is not loud, it does not burn like the sun, it hums, it murmurs, it drifts. It reminds us that even the smallest bit of light, reflected with care, can cross space and return as something almost holy, something that asks nothing but to be seen. Now let us return one last time to the soft idea of Earthlight, not as science alone, but as a quiet gesture across the dark, a glow that leaves the world and returns to it, having touched another. In that cycle of departure and return, something beautiful happens, something that speaks of patience, of presence, of belonging. Earthlight is not about brilliance, it is about presence. It is about what we send out often unknowingly, and what comes back changed yet still ours. Look up on a night when the moon is a faint curve in the sky. The shape is clear, but the whole circle of the moon is still visible, bathed in a grey-blue glow. That dim roundness, that whisper of light where no sunlight reaches, is Earthlight. It is the sum of oceans gleaming, snowfields reflecting, clouds scattering, and forests breathing. It is the light of life offered up to the sky and gently returned. There is something deeply human in that. We shine without meaning to. We affect the sky by existing. We are not just looking out, we are part of the view. And though we do not always notice it, our light reaches farther than we can measure. Not just through telescopes, but through the quiet effects of who we are and what we reflect. Imagine standing alone under a crescent moon. The night is still, the wind is stilled. The stars hang overhead like frozen music. But the moon glows in two halves, one sharp and silver, the other soft and blue. The silver is from the sun, the blue is from us, and somehow the blue feels closer. It is not cold, it is not distant. It is a kind of gentle recognition, as if the moon is saying, I see you, I carry your light. And the moon does carry it. Every time we see Earth shine, we are seeing light that passed through our skies, that brushed the wings of birds, that scattered through leaves, that shimmered off the surface of rivers, that danced in rain, that moved across rooftops and deserts, across skin and soil, that light leaves us, travels out, meets the moon, then returns, altered by dust, scattered by ancient stone, quieted by time. This light carries no message, but it tells a story of cycles, of return, of the softness of presence. It shows that even in reflection, something new is born. It reminds us that we can be seen from far away, not for our noise or movement, but for our light. Children sometimes ask, what colour is the moon? The answer depends on when and where and how you look. But Earthlight gives one answer that feels especially tender. The moon is the colour of us. When it glows with our light, it wears a veil of our world, a gentle film of ocean and air, a tint of cloud and coast. For a few hours in a few nights, it carries our reflection not like a mirror, but like a memory. Earthlight is always there even when we do not see it, just as our actions ripple across time even when unnoticed, just as our kindness, our breath, our choices, our hopes reflect into the world and find their way into others, sometimes directly, sometimes quietly, sometimes so faintly we do not know they've returned. But they do. Reflection is a kind of return. And if you ever wonder whether your light matters, whether what you give out makes a difference, think of the Earthlight on the moon. It is faint, it is filtered, it is often missed, but it is real. It changes the sky, it touches another world, it comes home again carrying pieces of who we are. Perhaps that is the deepest truth of this story. Not that Earthlight exists, but that reflection itself is sacred. That what we give comes back. That our light is part of something wider. That even in the darkness we glow, not to be noticed, but to belong. The moon does not need Earthlight to exist, but when it receives it, it becomes something more. And maybe we are like that too. Maybe in reflecting others, in holding their light for a moment, we also become more. So next time the moon rises pale and thin, and its darker half glows faintly in return, pause. Know that you are seeing a quiet miracle. Know that your world is shining across the void. And know that somewhere in the stillness, your own light has also left and returned, softened, but whole. Because even when we feel small, even when we are wrapped in shadow, we are still glowing, still giving, still reflected in the sky. There are places on the moon where sunlight has never reached. Craters so deep and hidden, tucked near the poles, that even the long arms of daylight cannot touch them. Inside, the cold is deeper than ice, and the shadows are older than trees. But just beyond the edge of those craters, where stone slopes up into sunlight, something beautiful happens. Shadows begin to move, not quickly, not loudly, but with a slow grace that feels like breath. The moon, we often think, is still, but its shadows dance. Because the moon has no atmosphere, light behaves differently there. On Earth, light scatters, it bends, it glows around corners, it softens. But on the moon, light travels in a straight line. Where it lands sharply. Where it doesn't, there is only blackness. No penumbra, no fading edge, just light and dark, day and night, edge and fall. This makes lunar shadows strange to us. They are stark, deep, absolute. A single rock the size of your hand can cast a shadow tall enough to hide a person. A ridge, rising from the plains, might stretch its darkness for miles. The sun does not arise and fall quickly on the moon. Its motion is slow, taking about 29 Earth days to complete one lunar day. So shadows do not flicker or flutter. They drift. They stretch across the landscape like long fingers of time. If you stood on the moon and watched a crater at sunrise, you would see something like a slow unwrapping. The shadow would peel back, inch by inch, revealing stone that has been in darkness for weeks. The change is not just visual, it is physical. Temperatures in shadowed regions can be hundreds of degrees colder than those in the sun. When light finally returns, it does so with heat, with energy, with memory, and the ground responds. Some craters, especially near the lunar South Pole, are so deeply shadowed that they are called permanently shadowed regions. Here, the sun's angle is always too low to reach inside. These places are some of the coldest in the solar system, and yet they may hold something precious. Ice. Not the glittering ice of Earth's lakes and rivers, but ancient frozen water molecules, tucked beneath the dust. Scientists believe that comets and meteorites may have delivered this water long ago, and without warmth or wind to erase it, it remained, locked in silence, waiting. This idea changes the moon from a barren rock to a keeper of possibility. In its shadows there may be the keys to future life beyond Earth, ice for drinking, for growing, for breathing, for staying. But even if we never use it, its presence whispers a story, that shadows too can hold light's promise. We often think of shadows as empty, but on the moon they are full of structure. Because of the sun's low angle and the sharpness of light, every small detail casts a long silhouette. A tiny ridge becomes a black stripe. A shallow pit becomes a pool of darkness. The surface becomes a dance of contrast. Light so bright it makes the eyes ache, and shadows so deep they seem bottomless. Photographs from lunar missions capture this beauty. Footprints that cast sharp shadows across grey dust. Landers perched with legs casting bold lines behind them. Astronauts outlined like figures in charcoal sketches. Everything is crisp, clear, divided, but not lifeless. In fact, those very shadows help us understand the moon's surface. By watching how they change, scientists can measure depth, slope, even composition. Shadows reveal more than they hide. They show how the terrain rises and falls, how rocks tilt and dust settles. They are not just the absence of light, they are the shape of the land made visible. And sometimes the moon reflects Earth's shadow too. During a lunar eclipse, when Earth moves between the sun and the moon, our planet casts its own shadow across the lunar surface. At first, the curve of darkness appears on the moon's edge, soft, red, growing. Then the whole moon darkens, glowing a dusky copper. This isn't just a trick of light, it's a map of us. Earth's atmosphere bends some sunlight around its edge, scattering the blue and letting the red pass through. That reddish hue on the moon is sunlight filtered through every sunrise and sunset happening on Earth at that moment. In that colour, shadows speak. They carry the story of our sky, the dust, the clouds, the breath of our world. And the moon, usually so cold and pale, glows with our warmth for a moment. Shadows on the moon are not still. They mark time. They carve shape. They keep secrets. They dance slowly, in a rhythm set by orbit and tilt, by distance and mass. They are part of the moon's language, and if we learn to read them, they tell stories of age and silence, of waiting and return. So when you think of the moon as lifeless, remember the shadows. Remember the craters that hold their darkness like folded cloth. Remember the ridges that cast long lines across a landscape older than memory. The shadows move, the shadows whisper, and sometimes when light finds them, the shadows let go. Let us now step gently into the realm of motion on a world that seems to sleep. For all its stillness, the moon is never truly still. It turns slowly, carefully, always showing the same face to Earth, but dancing through phases and angles, through light and dark, through sun and reflection. And within this careful motion, shadows become storytellers. If you were to stand near a crater at lunar dawn, you would feel time in a new way. The sun would rise not in minutes, but over hours, inching above the horizon like a secret unfolding. Light would crawl across the floor of the crater, revealing jagged rocks and fine dust, each casting shadows long and sharp like stretched paper. You would not feel warmth immediately. The sunlight, though bright, brings heat only after long exposure. But the shadows shift almost at once, silent fingers tracing the edges of forgotten things. This slow unfolding of light has given scientists a way to measure the depth of craters with surprising accuracy. By tracking the angle of sunlight and the length of the shadows, they can calculate the slope of walls, the height of rims, even the roughness of the floor. On Earth, the shadows of buildings change hour by hour. On the moon, the shadow of a single rock can last for days, and during that time it speaks volumes. In these long shadows there is texture, not only physical but temporal. Some craters are billions of years old, created in the wild days of the early solar system, when collisions were common and violent. Meteors struck with unimaginable force, sending debris skyward, carving wide bowls into the lunar surface. The remnants of these collisions still remain, and the shadows they cast are like echoes, dark impressions of a past that never faded. There are newer craters too, smaller, fresher. Their walls are steeper, their shadows sharper, and sometimes we can watch new ones form. Occasionally, small meteoroids still strike the moon, leaving behind tiny pockmarks that cast their own newborn shadows. Even now the moon changes, not dramatically, not often, but slowly, always, and the light catches those changes, the shadows frame them. One of the most fascinating aspects of lunar exploration has been the use of shadow analysis in remote sensing. Scientists studying satellite imagery of the moon have developed methods to read shadow lengths to understand elevation. This has allowed for detailed 3D maps of lunar terrain, maps that show where astronauts can safely land, where rovers might drive, where future bases might be built. These maps are built not just from light, but from darkness, from the careful reading of what light does not touch. It is a reminder that in the absence of something, meaning can still exist. A shadow is not nothing. It is the shape of something standing in the way. On the moon, that shape can be a boulder the size of a truck or a grain of dust barely raised from the surface. The light reveals, but the shadow defines. There's also something poetic in how the moon's lack of atmosphere makes its shadows behave. Without air to scatter light, there are no halos, no soft transitions. The edge of every shadow is as sharp as a blade. On Earth, twilight softens the line between day and night. On the moon, there is no twilight. The terminator, the line between light and dark, moves with mathematical precision, dividing the surface with clean certainty. Step across it, and this temperature may change by hundreds of degrees. The brightness shifts from blinding to pitch black in the space of a step. And still, within these extremes, beauty thrives. When the sun is low on the lunar horizon, every ridge and pebble becomes a sculpture. The light grazes the surface, exaggerating texture, revealing details invisible under direct illumination. Astronauts have described this moment as one of the most breathtaking on the moon, when the ground, otherwise grey and flat, becomes alive with contrast. Every step casts a shadow. Every shadow tells a truth. In the depths of permanently shadowed regions, those polar craters never kissed by sunlight, scientists have used radar and laser altimeters to probe what cannot be seen. There, the shadows do not dance, they wait. But they still speak, in echoes and data, in whispers and silence. And what they may hold, ice, preserved molecules, ancient records, is a treasure not just of science, but of story. In the coldest, darkest places, something endures. One can imagine in some future not far away a human standing on the rim of such a crater, looking down into that unlit world. They would see nothing with their eyes, only blackness, but their instruments would tell them the shape of the ground. Their screens would draw pictures from light that never was, from reflections so faint they seem like ghosts. And in that image, faint, fragmented, mathematical, they would find something close to wonder. Because even in the places where light does not reach, our understanding can. Even in shadow there is discovery. The moon teaches us that light is not the only way to see, that movement is not the only way to know something is alive, that silence is not the absence of voice but a different kind of speaking. And in the slow dance of shadows across its surface, the moon shows us that time can stretch, that change can unfold slowly, that even the stillest places move if you wait long enough. The shadows are not static, they are stories, written in dust, outlined by sunlight, held in stone. So we watch them, measure them, wonder at them, because in their quiet motion they remind us that there is meaning in contrast, that without shadow light has no edge, and that sometimes what we cannot see directly still shapes the world in ways that last. Now let us return one final time to the slow-moving shadows of the moon, not just as outlines of rock and ridge, but as something more intimate, something that invites reflection. The moon does not speak in sound, and yet it tells its story clearly, with every change of light. Its silence is not empty, its darkness is not blank. What it offers is a deeper kind of vision, one that relies not on what we see, but on how we pay attention. We are used to looking for meaning in brightness, in stars that flare, in planets that glow, in the shine of city lights and the gleam of the day. But the moon reminds us that darkness also contains its own truth, that in the shadowed part of a world, the shape of things becomes clear, that when the glare fades, we begin to notice the details, the ridges, the dips, the quiet forms that brightness hides. Perhaps that is why Earth's first explorers on the moon were so struck by what they saw, not only the vastness of the plains or the blackness of the sky, but the texture of the shadows, how they moved without hurry, how they gave shape to every footstep. A boot pressed into dust cast a long line behind it, reaching away like a thread. The lander itself stood like a statue, its legs casting narrow towers of shade. The shadows gave everything depth, and in that depth was the memory of time, because the moon's surface holds the past in stillness. It does not erase. There is no wind to sweep away tracks, no rain to soften edges. Every mark remains. Every shadow falls across a story left exactly where it happened. And that means the moon is a kind of archive, not just of impact and motion, but of presence, of arrival, of moments frozen in contrast. Even now, when we look up at the moon from Earth, we often see its phases as a kind of clock, a crescent, a half, a fullness that soon fades. But behind those phases, behind the shape of the light, there is always a shadow, a soft curve moving gently across the surface, like a hand brushing past a memory. That shadow is the division between night and day on the moon, the line of quiet transformation, the proof that light too moves slowly. Some cultures have watched this shifting shadow and seen it as a face, a watcher in the sky. Others have read animals into it, a hare, a lion, a frog, all of them finding something familiar in the balance between light and dark. In that soft border, imagination lives, and through it, we remember that the moon is not just a stone, it is a canvas painted by time and silence, by the slow motion of its orbit, by the gentle pull of sunlight across rock. Every crater becomes a bowl of darkness, and then, slowly, a bowl of light. Every ridge throws a shadow, then takes it back. It is like breath, like tides, like the heartbeat of a world that has no heart, but still knows how to keep rhythm. And Earth, watching from afar, responds. When we see those shadows fall, we understand our own place a little better. We are not outside this dance, we are part of it. Our light touches the moon. Our planet casts shadows too. During a lunar eclipse, we see the shape of our world carved into the sky. We see our curve, our edge, drawn across the moon's face, and the moon, without protest, receives it. There is humility in that, to be still and let another shape you, to accept shadow as a visitor, and perhaps to realize that being shaped is not the same as being lost, because the shadows on the moon do not erase it, they reveal it. They remind us that not everything needs to shine to be seen, that not all stories are told in brightness, that stillness does not mean silence. In a future not far from now, when humans return to the moon, they will walk again in those long, sharp shadows. They will see their forms stretched across alien dust. They will wake in habitats where the sun rises over days and shadows creep slowly across walls. They will learn to read the land not just by its brightness, but by the shapes it leaves in darkness. And perhaps they will find comfort in that. To know that even in a world without air or life, there is still movement, still memory, still meaning. The shadows will move around them, and they will move through the shadows, and in that slow, quiet dance, they will become part of the story. The moon will hold their presence as it has held ours, as in footprints, in light, in contrast. It will keep the memory in silence, in shadow, in soft motion across stone. And we, here on Earth, will look up and see it, not just as a distant object, but as a place where shadows dance, where light pauses, where time slows down enough for us to notice, and in noticing, to understand. Because in the end, what the moon shows us is not just the difference between light and dark, but the beauty of what lies between, that line of transition, that soft drift, that moment when a crater goes from black to silver. That's where the story lives. That's where wonder waits. So watch the shadows, follow them, let them guide your eyes and soften your pace. Let them remind you that even in the stillest places there is movement, even in darkness there is shape, and even in silence there is a voice. There is a force in the universe that never speaks, never glows, never rushes forward with thunder or flame. Yet it is everywhere. It holds the planets in their orbits. It keeps your feet on the ground, it tugs at the moon, it stretches the oceans, it has no sound, no colour, no scent, and still it touches everything. We call it gravity, but that word is only the beginning of the story, because gravity is not just a pull, it is a silent bond, a whisper that ties all things together. On Earth, we feel it most as weight, the heaviness of your body when you lie still, the way objects fall without asking. An apple drops, a river runs downhill, the ground holds you close, but in space gravity becomes poetry. It curves the paths of stars, it dances with time, it bends light, it connects places that have never met and holds them in relationship, not through ropes or chains, but through quiet agreement. The moon, too, is part of this dance. It does not simply orbit Earth by chance. It is held there by gravity, a pull that has lasted for billions of years. A tether made not of matter, but of influence. The Earth pulls the moon toward it, and the moon in turn pulls on the Earth. This is not a one-way command, it is a partnership, a balance, and because of it the moon never falls. It moves around us again and again, always the same distance away, always caught in a loop that feels like breath. But this pull is not without effect. Over time, the moon's gravity has shaped Earth's very rhythm. It has stretched our days, slowed our spin, taught the oceans how to rise and fall. The moon has no voice, yet it speaks in tides. No hands, yet it sculpts coastlines. It does not touch the water, yet it moves it. This is the strange grace of gravity, a force that acts without contact, and yet changes everything it meets. In return, Earth's gravity has shaped the moon. Long ago, the moon spun more quickly, but Earth's pull slowed it down. Eventually, it became tidally locked, always showing the same face to us, always hiding its far side. This is why the moon looks so familiar every night. It is not a trick of distance. It is the result of years of gravitational conversation. Earth said, "Slow down." The moon listened. And now they turn in a kind of quiet embrace. Even now, the moon is drifting away from Earth. Not quickly, only about 4 centimeters a year, but over time that space grows. The pull weakens, the tides soften. In millions of years, the moon will orbit farther out and Earth's days will lengthen even more. The bond will remain, but the distance will change, like two dancers letting go but still moving in the same room. And yet this doesn't mean the end of the relationship, it means transformation. Because gravity, unlike ropes, doesn't snap. It stretches, it adjusts, it holds even as it shifts. The moon and Earth will never forget each other. They will never stop feeling the other's presence. That's what gravity does. It leaves no part untouched. We often think of gravity as a rule, something strict and inescapable, but it is more like a promise. The sun holds the planets not because it commands them, but because of what it offers: a center, a pull, a reason to stay near. The planets move not in fear, but in trust, and they respond with motion, with orbit, with rhythm. In that sense, gravity is not a jailer, it is a choreographer. And what a dance it creates! Moons orbiting planets, planets orbiting stars, stars orbiting the centers of galaxies, and even galaxies moving together in great slow spirals through the cosmos. All of it in motion, all of it held together by the gentlest of pulls. Somewhere in all this movement there is you, standing on Earth, feeling the soft tug that keeps you grounded. But your body too responds to gravity in subtle ways. Your blood flows downward, your muscles work to lift, your bones grow stronger in resistance to weight. Without gravity, your sense of direction would fade. Your balance would falter. Even your cells would change. Gravity is not just something you experience, it is something that shapes you. Astronauts who travel beyond Earth feel the difference. In microgravity, muscles weaken. Bones thin. The body learns a new normal. But the moment they return to Earth, gravity greets them like an old friend, firm, familiar, unyielding. They walk again, they stumble, they readjust, and in that process they remember just how much the invisible matters. Gravity also stretches beyond the physical. It becomes a metaphor for connection, for loyalty, for draw. We say we are pulled to someone, drawn into an idea, held by a memory. These are not just poetic turns of phrase. They are reflections of a real truth, that unseen forces move us, that not all influence is visible, that what shapes us may not always be touched, but is always felt. And in this way, the moon becomes more than a companion in the sky. It becomes a symbol of quiet relationship, of distance that doesn't mean disconnection, of presence without pressure. The moon is held, and it holds, it turns and we turn. Its pull is not loud, but it is lasting. So the next time you feel the ground beneath your feet, remember the force that keeps you close, the same force that lifts the sea, that guides the moon, that curves the light of distant stars. It is not a shout, it is not a flash, it is the soft pull between us, the silent promise that we are never truly apart. Now let's drift deeper into gravity's quiet embrace. Beyond Earth and moon, beyond what we feel directly, gravity weaves its influence through the cosmos like a thread that never frays. It is the architect of orbits, the silent artist of galaxies, the invisible guide that bends the path of light. It does not announce itself, it does not ask for attention, and yet it holds together everything we know. Einstein taught us that gravity is not just a force, it is the shape of space itself. Massive objects like planets and stars bend the fabric of space-time, and smaller things follow those curves. Imagine space not as emptiness, but as a soft sheet stretched tight. Place a ball on that sheet and it dips. Roll another ball nearby and it will curve toward the dip. Not because the balls are pulling on each other directly, but because the space between them has changed shape. This idea, so gentle, so elegant, explains everything from why apples fall to why black holes exist. It tells us why the moon orbits Earth, why Earth orbits the sun, why galaxies spiral. And it reminds us that gravity is not a force in the usual sense. It is more like an agreement between matter and motion, a quiet negotiation between mass and direction. Take the example of the sun. It is not reaching out and grabbing Earth with hands of fire. Instead, its mass bends the space around it. Earth moves forward, but the space it moves through is curved so it circles. It is like walking in a straight line on a curved surface. You end up going around, not because you chose to, but because the ground itself told you to turn. The moon follows a similar curve around Earth. It falls toward us constantly, but because it also moves forward, it keeps missing. That's what orbit really is, continuous falling and continuous missing. A balance so precise, so poetic that it becomes a dance. And this dance has lasted for more than 4 billion years. But gravity does more than hold things in orbit. It shapes time itself. Near massive objects, time slows down. This is not science fiction. It's been measured with atomic clocks on mountaintops and in deep space. The higher you go, the faster time moves. The closer you are to Earth, the slower it ticks. On the surface, this difference is tiny. But over great distances and deep gravity wells, it becomes profound. This means that time on the moon ticks slightly faster than time on Earth. Not enough for us to notice with our senses, but enough for satellites and space missions to account for. The moon is not just far away, it is in a small way ahead. And in this slowing and stretching of time, gravity shows its soft power again. Not with pressure, but with cadence, not with noise, but with the quiet bending of what we thought was straight. It changes not just where things go, but how long they take to get there. Now think about the galaxies. Vast spirals of stars, dust and dark matter. Spinning, drifting, merging. Gravity is what keeps them whole. Each star is held in orbit by the collective mass of the galaxy, much of which we cannot even see. This invisible matter, dark matter, does not shine, does not glow, but it tugs, it pulls, it wraps the galaxies in its arms and keeps them from flying apart. Without it, the stars would scatter like sparks. With it, they remain together, moving in quiet harmony. We don't fully understand dark matter, but we know it must exist because the galaxies move as if they are heavier than they look. That hidden mass, known only by the shape it makes in space, is one of the most powerful reminders that not everything real can be seen. And that is true of gravity everywhere. You cannot hold it, you cannot taste it, but you feel it every moment. It holds your bones in place. It gives weight to your breath. It keeps the oceans beneath the moon's watch. It keeps the earth curled around the sun's fire. It keeps the stars held softly in their great orbits, millions of light years away. Even black holes, those places where gravity becomes so strong that not even light escapes, are part of this same fabric. They are not monsters, but consequences. Places where mass has bent space into a knot, where time slows to nothing, where the pull becomes final. But even there, gravity is not cruel, it simply is. A presence steady and sure, shaping space with silence. Scientists have now detected gravitational waves, ripples in space-time itself, created when massive objects like black holes or neutron stars collide. These waves move across the universe, passing through everything, stretching and squeezing space ever so slightly. We cannot feel them, but with delicate instruments, we can detect them. And in those waves, we hear the music of gravity, notes played on the strings of space-time echoing from events millions of years ago. It is humbling to know that somewhere, two stars collided and sent out a ripple, and that ripple passed through you, without harm, without notice but with a kind of quiet greeting from the deep past. All of this, from falling leaves to galaxy swirls, is held together by gravity. And all of it reminds us that connection does not require strength, that bonds do not need to shout, that something can pull on you gently forever and never let go. When you see the moon hanging above the horizon, understand that its place is not an accident. It is where it belongs, because Earth's mass says so. And the moon, with its own smaller pull, replies, "That silent exchange has lasted longer than mountains, and it will continue even as the distance grows." Because gravity does not forget. It remembers every tug, every fall, every orbit. It is the memory of motion written into the structure of the universe, a memory that never fades. Now, let us drift gently toward the close of this silent story. The pull that connects us not just to the moon or Earth, but to the very fabric of the cosmos. Gravity does not hurry. It does not demand. It does not scream. Instead, it holds quietly, endlessly, like a secret kept between friends. It shapes the universe in slow waves, in invisible threads, in soft curves of space and time. Imagine the sun, Earth, and moon, bound together in a delicate triangle of influence. The sun's gravity commands the orbits of both Earth and moon, holding them in place with a strength that belies its distance. Earth pulls the moon, keeping it close, teaching it to turn. The moon pulls back, tugging at Earth's oceans and its very rotation. This triad moves in harmony, a cosmic song sung without sound, written in invisible lines. The beauty of this pull is not in force, but in balance. If Earth's gravity were weaker, the moon would drift away quickly. If the moon's pull were stronger, tides would rage, days would shorten. But as it is, the system finds an equilibrium, a rhythm of give and take, of push and pull, of holding and releasing. It's the same rhythm we find in breathing, in walking, in love. And though the moon slowly moves away, the bond remains. Gravity stretches but does not break. It bends without snapping. This slow change is a reminder that connection is not always about closeness. Sometimes it is about space, about trust, about the dance between being near and being free. We too in our lives experience this silent pull, relationships that hold us gently, not tightly, moments of tension and release, the push and pull of hope and doubt, the ebb and flow of trust and fear. Gravity teaches us that these movements are natural, that they shape us as much as we shape them, that love, like gravity, is invisible but powerful. Beyond our planet, gravity links us to the stars. It has shaped the history of galaxies, the birth of black holes, the path of light through the cosmos. It holds the universe together even as it expands. It tells a story of unity in vastness, of connection in distance, of a silent bond that stretches across time and space. In that silence there is power. In that quiet there is presence. Gravity does not need to shout to hold the heavens, it only needs to be, and because it is, we can walk under the night sky, feel the moon's pull on our oceans, and know that we are part of something far greater than ourselves. So next time you look up at the moon, remember the silent pull between you, the unseen force that holds your feet to the ground, that shapes the tides, that bends the path of light. Know that you are part of a dance as old as time itself, a dance of gravity, connection, and quiet strength. And in that knowing, find a gentle peace, because no matter how far we travel, how much we change, there is always a force holding us close, a silent pull between us, written not in words but in the very fabric of the universe. The moon's surface is not smooth like glass or soft like sand on a beach. Instead, it is covered in a fine powder, moon dust, that tells a story older than any human memory. This dust is not just dirt. It is a silent archive, layer of history written in tiny grains that have drifted and settled over billions of years. To walk on the moon is to walk on memory itself. Unlike Earth, the moon has no wind to sweep away dust, no rain to wash it clean. So every meteor strike, every fragment of rock that falls, every particle released by solar wind stays. The dust builds up layer by layer, preserving the echoes of ancient collisions. It is a landscape painted in tiny crystals and shattered rock, each grain a page from the moon's deep past. Moondust is sharp and jagged, unlike the smooth sand we know on Earth. Because it forms without water or atmosphere to round its edges, each particle is a shard, angular and abrasive. Astronauts described it as feeling like powdered glass. It clings to boots and suits, slipping through seams, floating like smoke in the low gravity. It is both a friend and a foe, part of the moon's character and a challenge for those who visit. Scientists believe that moon dust carries the secrets of the early solar system. Embedded within it are particles from comets and asteroids, traces of the sun's ancient activity, and even hints of Earth's own history, carried by tiny impacts over time. When we analyse moon dust, we are reading a record no human has written, but one that tells us who we are and where we came from. Because the moon is a witness to Earth's story too. When large impacts occurred on Earth billions of years ago, debris was ejected into space, some landing on the moon. So moon dust contains fragments of our own planet's youth. In this way, dust becomes a bridge, a connection between worlds. It is a quiet reminder that Earth and Moon share more than orbit. They share memory. The lunar dust also reveals how the Moon changes today. Each day it is battered by tiny micrometeorites, small particles travelling at incredible speeds. These impacts break down surface rocks, creating fresh dust and renewing the lunar soil. At the same time, the solar wind, a stream of charged particles from the sun, alters the dust, changing its colour and texture over time. This ongoing process is slow but relentless, a soft transformation under silent skies. Understanding moon dust is important for future exploration. The dust can be dangerous for equipment and human health. It scratches surfaces, interferes with electronics, and irritates lungs. Yet it also holds promise. Its properties could help build shelters or produce materials for life support. Moon dust is both a challenge and a resource, a reminder that every story has complexity. Walking in moon dust is like stepping in history. Each footprint marks a moment, preserved for centuries or millennia, unchanged by wind or rain. Astronauts left their prints during Apollo missions, and those marks remain visible today. They are echoes of human presence in a landscape that otherwise forgets nothing. This dust also affects light. It reflects sunlight in ways that make the moon glow softly. The way light scatters across these tiny grains gives the lunar surface its unique colour: grey, silver, sometimes tinged with subtle blues or reds. These colours tell of space weathering, of age, of the silent dance between dust and sun. Moon dust is more than particles on a surface. It is the moon's skin, its memory, its quiet language. It holds the past and shapes the future. It reminds us that even the smallest things carry weight, that history can be written in grains invisible to the eye, and that the stories of worlds are often told in dust. Let us now drift deeper into the quiet world of moon dust, where history is written grain by grain, layer by layer. This dust, though fragile in size, holds strength in story. It is the result of billions of years of collision and change, a surface formed not by wind or water, but by the endless rain of space. Every speck is shaped by impact, by solar wind, by cosmic rays, by forces so gentle and so fierce they seem like whispers and storms all at once. Unlike Earth, the moon has no atmosphere to shield it. Its surface is exposed directly to the vacuum of space, to the steady stream of charged particles flowing from the sun. This solar wind implants particles into the dust, changing its chemical makeup, making it darker, more weathered. The dust is not just rock, it is altered by light and radiation. It tells a story of transformation without life, without water, but full of energy. Each micrometeorite strike reshapes the dust's surface. Tiny particles travelling at tens of thousands of miles per hour slam into the moon, vaporizing bits of rock and dust, creating miniature glass beads and reshaping grains. This process, called space weathering, slowly changes the reflectivity and colour of the lunar soil. It is the moon's way of breathing. Though there is no air, there is motion, no sound but change. This constant renewal means the dust on the moon's surface is young, even if the rocks beneath are ancient. Astronauts who collected samples during the Apollo missions brought back soil that had been on the surface for anywhere from thousands to millions of years. Each sample was a snapshot, a moment frozen in the slow passage of lunar time. Scientists use these samples to understand not only the moon's history, but the history of the entire solar system. Embedded in the dust are particles from comets and asteroids, tiny bits of the early solar nebula from which all planets formed. By studying the dust, we learn about conditions long before life existed on Earth. The moon acts like a library, its dust pages open to those who know how to read. Beyond the science, moondust carries a poetic weight. It is the silent witness to humanity's first steps beyond Earth. The dust clings to astronaut suits, fills their boots, and drifts inside lunar modules. It is a reminder that even in the vastness of space, small things matter. The footprints left in the dust are the echoes of exploration, of curiosity, of reaching outward. But moondust also poses challenges. Its sharp edges can damage equipment, clog filters, and irritate lungs. On Earth, dust is often harmless, softened by moisture and time. On the moon, it is a persistent nuisance. Engineers designing future habitats must find ways to manage it, to keep it from harming explorers or machines. Yet it may also be a resource, usable for building, shielding, or even extracting water. Imagine a future where moondust is not just a problem but a tool, where habitats are made from compacted dust, where shields against radiation rise from the soil beneath explorers' feet, where dust carries the weight not only of the past but the hopes of tomorrow. This humble powder scattered across the lunar plains holds potential as vast as its history. Walking in moondust is like touching time itself. Each step presses a moment into a world without wind or rain, where footprints last for centuries. The dust records everything, the passage of people, the landing of machines, the fall of meteorites. It is a silent storyteller, holding memories of the present for future eyes. And when sunlight strikes the dust, it shines in ways that tell of that history. The grey surface sparkles with tiny crystals, catching the light like distant stars. The moon's glow is shaped by this dust, by its texture and colour. It is the skin that meets the sky, the face that turns toward Earth, the quiet veil over an ancient world. Moondust reminds us that even the smallest things are important, that history is not only in grand monuments or loud events, but in the particles beneath our feet. That memory can be carried in dust as well as in minds. And that exploration is not just about discovery, but about connection, to worlds, to time, and to ourselves. Now, as the moon continues its slow journey through space, the dust beneath our feet tells stories of both ancient chaos and quiet persistence. It is a surface unlike any other, a place where time has no wind, no rain, no shifting seasons to erase the past. Every grain of dust is a fragment of a story, waiting patiently to be read. The footprints left by the first humans are still visible, a reminder that even in a world so vast and silent, our presence leaves a mark. These marks do not fade, they speak of courage, of curiosity, of reaching out beyond our home. The dust holds those moments like a fragile treasure, neither bright nor loud, but steady and true. But the dust also whispers of challenges. The fine, sharp particles float through the airless environment, invading equipment, scratching visors, clogging seals. It reminds us that exploration requires care, that every step forward carries risk, that even the softest powder can be a force to reckon with. Yet in this very dust lies hope. Scientists imagine future bases built from lunar soil, compressed into bricks that can shield from radiation and micrometeorites. They dream of extracting water from ice hidden beneath the surface dust. Water to drink, to grow food, to breathe. The moon's dust may be the key to living beyond Earth, turning a barren world into a new home. This transformation of dust into shelter, of history into future, is a kind of magic. It shows how even the smallest particles carry great weight, how memory can become foundation, how silence can become voice. When sunlight falls on the moon, it scatters across this fine layer, giving the surface its soft glow. The dust changes colour and texture depending on how long it has been exposed to the space environment, how many impacts it has weathered, how much solar wind has altered it. This dance of light and dust creates the moon's changing face. The subtle variations that make it familiar yet mysterious. For those who have walked on the moon, the dust is a constant companion, sometimes a nuisance, sometimes a wonder. It clings to boots and tools, drifts into helmets, and settles silently on surfaces. It is the dust of dreams made real, the dust of first steps, the dust of human story written in stone and powder. Looking up at the moon from Earth, we see only its shining face, but beneath that light lies this quiet world of dust and memory, waiting for new stories to be written. Stories of return, stories of discovery, stories of a small blue planet reaching out to touch another world. Moondust is more than rock. It is connection. It is past and future folded into grains too small to see but too important to ignore. It reminds us that in every journey, the smallest things carry the greatest meaning, and that memory like dust can settle softly, waiting for the right light to shine again. When the sun dips below the horizon and the sky slips into darkness, a different kind of light awakens. It is soft and gentle, not harsh or demanding. This light does not come from flames or bulbs, but from the living world itself, a quiet glow that flickers and pulses, a nightlight cast by millions of tiny creatures across forests, fields and oceans. It is bioluminescence, the magic of life making its own light. Imagine standing in a forest just after sunset. The air is cool, filled with the scent of earth and leaves. As your eyes adjust, you begin to notice faint sparks, tiny points of green, blue and gold shimmering like stars among the shadows. These are fireflies, signalling to one another with blinking lanterns built right into their bodies. Their light is a gentle conversation, a dance of attraction and communication in the quiet night. But bioluminescence is not just in the air. It lives beneath the waves too. In the depths of oceans where sunlight never reaches, glowing creatures swirl in darkness. Jellyfish pulse with the ethereal light. Tiny plankton flicker as they drift. Fish flash with sudden glimmers, vanishing again into black. This living light illuminates a hidden world, a world that thrives without the sun. The science behind bioluminescence is as poetic as the light itself. It is a chemical reaction where molecules called luciferins combine with oxygen, catalyzed by enzymes called luciferases. The result is light without heat, a cold flame that life uses for many purposes. To attract mates, to ward off predators, to lure prey, to communicate. It is light shaped by the survival and desire. Bioluminescent light is soft, often bluish or greenish, colours that travel farthest through water and night air. This light flickers and fades, blinks and pulses, creating patterns as varied as the creatures themselves. It is a language without words, a visual symphony played out in pulses and glows. And when seen together, these lights become a living constellation, a nighttime galaxy on Earth. Some forests glow with mushrooms that emit faint light, casting eerie glimmers on the forest floor. These fungi shine not for attraction, but perhaps to lure insects that spread their spores, completing an ancient cycle. The glow is constant, a steady breath beneath the canopy, a secret world visible only to those who know how to see. In coastal waters, waves can sparkle with bioluminescent plankton, turning breakers into ribbons of blue fire. When disturbed by swimmers or boats, the water glows in trails, painting the sea with light. This is the ocean's own nighttime magic, a reminder that life continues even when the sun sleeps. Bioluminescence connects us to the rhythms of nature. It is a part of the night's hush, a signal that darkness is not empty but full of life and light. It teaches us that even in the absence of sun, life finds a way to shine. That light can come from within. That glow is not only external but internal, a light born of chemistry and need, but also of beauty. The living light of the world is ancient. It may have been one of the earliest forms of communication on Earth. Before eyes developed, before sound travelled far, light flickered in the dark. It was a signal of presence, of survival, of connection. And in that light, life found community. In our own lives, bioluminescence reminds us of the power of subtlety, that beauty does not need to be loud to be seen, that small lights can guide us through the darkness, that communication is not always spoken but can be felt, sensed, understood in quiet ways. As you walk through a dark forest or swim in glowing waters, or watch the fireflies blink in evening air, you are witnessing a secret conversation, a language of light and shadow, chemistry and life, connection and hope. You are part of a world that glows softly in the night, a world that never truly sleeps. And in that glow you find comfort, a gentle nightlight cast by the living for the living, a reminder that even in darkness there is light, and even in silence there is song. Let's drift deeper into the glowing night, into the ways life shapes light to speak in the dark. Bioluminescence is not just a simple glow, it is a language written in flickers and pulses, a dance performed in shadows. Every flash tells a story, every glow has a purpose, and every shimmer carries meaning in the quiet world of night. Consider fireflies, those tiny lantern bearers of summer evenings. Their light is a call, a signal, a song without just sound. Males blink to attract females, each species with its own rhythm, a unique code carried on waves of soft, yellow-green light. Females respond with their own flashes, choosing mates based on light patterns. This visual conversation ensures survival, connection, and continuity. And when thousands light up together, the forest becomes a living constellation, a ballet of shimmering stars grounded on Earth. But fireflies are only one chapter in this glowing story. In the depths of oceans where sunlight never reaches, bioluminescence becomes life's beacon. Creatures use light to hide, to hunt, to fool, and to find. The anglerfish, with its glowing lure, tempts prey in black waters. Jellyfish pulse with ghostly light, their forms both beautiful and otherworldly. Tiny plankton, when disturbed, create glowing waves that ripple through the sea, turning darkness into spectacle. This light is cold, produced by chemical reactions that use energy but release no heat. It is efficient and delicate, a glow made for communication, not warmth. The colours often lean toward blues and greens, wavelengths that travel farthest in water and night air. This is nature's choice optimized over eons, a whisper of evolution's hand. Beyond animals, fungi contribute their own glow. Bioluminescent mushrooms carpet forest floors with eerie green light, a quiet, steady pulse that breaks the night's black. Their glow may lure insects, spreading spores and life. They remind us that light in the dark is not only for movement, but for connection and renewal. Bioluminescence is ancient, perhaps among the earliest forms of life's communication. Before eyes or ears, before language or song, light flickered in the dark, a signal of presence and survival. It is a language written in chemistry but understood in instinct, a reminder that even in silence there is conversation. This living light connects us to cycles of nature, to the rhythms of night and day, to the dance of life that continues even when the sun sleeps. It teaches us that darkness is not empty, but alive, that light can come from within, glowing softly like a heartbeat, that in the quiet there is song. For humans, bioluminescence is wonder and inspiration. It has inspired stories, art, science. It reminds us that nature's beauty often hides in subtlety, that even the smallest light can guide us through darkness, that communication is not always loud or clear, but can be felt in flickers and glows. In a world growing brighter with artificial light, bioluminescence calls us to remember the natural rhythms of dark and light, to honour the soft glow that has guided life for millennia, to find comfort in the quiet lights that shine without demand, without heat, without noise. So when night falls and the world grows still, look closely. Notice the flicker of a firefly, the shimmer in a tide pool, the glow of a mushroom in shadow. You are witnessing a conversation older than words, a nightlight cast by life itself, a quiet reminder that even in darkness there is light, even in silence there is song. Now, let us drift gently toward the closing glow of this living light, the nightlight that connects worlds seen and unseen. Bioluminescence is more than a glow. It is a bridge, a language, a thread weaving life together through darkness. It teaches us that even without the sun, life can shine, that light can come not from fire, but from within. In the deepest oceans, where no sunlight reaches, bioluminescent creatures create their own stars. These living lights form constellations beneath the waves, spirals, pulses, waves of glow that travel through blackness. It is a silent celebration of existence in the dark, a dance of survival and beauty. This light guides predators, warns prey and calls mates. It shapes a world where sight is reborn in shimmer. On land, the glow of fireflies is a soft hymn to the night. In forests and fields, their blinking lights gather into waves of gentle rhythm, a living constellation that pulses with life's delicate heartbeat. For a moment, the darkness fills with thousands of tiny fires, each one a message, a question, a hope. They remind us that even the smallest sparks can light the night. Mushrooms and fungi add their steady glow, a quiet undercurrent of light beneath the canopy. This constant pulse is life's whispered song, reminding us that light can be slow, steady, enduring. That not all brilliance must blaze. Some shines quietly, patiently in places forgotten by sun. Bioluminescence connects us to ancient cycles, to the rhythm of day and night, life and rest, visibility and shadow. It is a language older than eyes, older than sound, older than words. It shows that communication can be subtle, nuanced, a dance of flickers and fades. For humans, this living light is wonder and inspiration. It reminds us of nature's hidden magic. It invites us to slow down, to notice, to listen, to find beauty not only in brightness but in softness, to see that light can comfort, guide and connect without noise or heat. In our glowing cities, full of electric light and noise, bioluminescence calls us back to the night, to the dark spaces where light is scarce but meaning is rich, where life persists, shines, and speaks in ways we are only beginning to understand. So when you find yourself in the dark, look closely. Watch for the flicker of a firefly's lantern, the shimmer of plankton in water, the steady glow of mushrooms beneath trees. You are witnessing a conversation ancient and ongoing, a nightlight cast by life itself, a reminder that even in darkness there is light, and in silence there is song. Let this living light guide you gently through the night. Let it remind you that presence can shine softly, that connection does not need to shout, and that even the smallest glow can hold a universe of meaning. Beneath the surface of the earth, hidden from sight and sound, lies a world as alive as the forests above. A tangled web of roots and fungi, water and soil, communication and connection. These whispering roots stretch far and wide, reaching through dark earth like quiet fingers seeking touch. They are not alone. Joined by microscopic threads called mycelium, they form networks that carry messages, share resources, and even remember the stories of the forest. It is a hidden conversation beneath our feet, a silent symphony of life. Imagine a tree, tall and still, its leaves rustling softly in the breeze, but underground its roots are anything but still. They explore, probing the earth for water, for nutrients, for friends. They grow not just downward, but outward, weaving among roots of other trees, making invisible bonds. This root network is vast, sometimes spanning miles beneath a forest floor, connecting individual plants into a living community. Fungi play a vital role here. Their mycelium, thin, thread-like structures, bind soil particles and tree roots together. In exchange for sugars from the trees, these fungal threads bring water and minerals from distant parts of the soil. This partnership is ancient, stretching back hundreds of millions of years. It is not just survival, it is cooperation, symbiosis, mutual care. In this way, the forest shares, protects, and grows as one. Scientists call this underground web the Wood Wide Web because of its remarkable ability to transmit signals, warnings of drought, pests, or damage, between trees. When one tree is attacked by insects, its roots and fungal partners send chemical messages to neighbouring trees, which then prepare their own defences. This silent alert system helps the forest survive, teaching us that communication need not be loud to be powerful. But the roots do more than talk. They remember. Studies have shown that forests can recall past stress and respond more effectively to future challenges. This memory is stored not in brains, but in chemical exchanges and structural changes within roots and fungi. It is a living memory, one written in molecules, in growth patterns, in the dance of life beneath the soil. Water is also a traveller here. Roots draw moisture from distant pockets in the earth, channeling it toward thirsty leaves. The mycelium network helps distribute water more evenly, sharing it with saplings and weaker plants. In dry seasons, this sharing can mean the difference between life and death. The forest breathes together, each root and thread a part of a whole. This network is fragile but resilient. It is shaped by soil composition, by rainfall, by temperature. It adapts, shifts, and recovers. When trees fall or land is disturbed, the mycelium can survive underground for years, waiting for new growth. It is a testament to persistence and hope, a reminder that beneath destruction lies potential for renewal. In this hidden world, time flows differently. Growth is slow, Messages travel over hours or days. Life moves at a pace measured in seasons and centuries. Yet despite this gentleness, the root network holds great power. It shapes forests, it maintains soil health, it regulates ecosystems, it supports the very air we breathe. Walking through a forest, we often forget this quiet world beneath us. We see only trunks and leaves, light and shadow. But below, roots whisper, fungi pulse, water flows. A conversation happens without voice or eyes between beings who have long known how to live in balance. This underground symphony offers lessons for us all. That connection matters, that sharing strengthens, that even in silence there can be understanding, that life thrives not in isolation but in relationship. And perhaps by listening to these whispering roots, we can learn to be more like the forest, patient, caring, deeply connected. Because beneath our feet, the forest is alive with stories, old and new, fragile and strong, soft as dust and persistent as stone. It is a world of whispers and webs, of memory and motion, of life reaching quietly into the dark. Let us now wander deeper into the hidden network beneath the forest floor, where roots and fungi weave a complex tapestry of life and communication. This underground world is not silent but hums with activity, a living web connecting plants in ways that echo human communities yet remain uniquely its own. Here, roots entwine with mycelium, forming partnerships older than the trees themselves, spanning vast distances beneath the earth, linking individual lives into one collective. As roots spread through the soil, they encounter not only nutrients and water, but other roots, fungi, bacteria, and even insects. These interactions create a dynamic ecosystem of relationships, a quiet cooperation that balances competition with support. Some roots release chemicals to warn neighbours of danger, while others share sugars and minerals with partners in need. This underground economy is a delicate dance of give and take, of survival and generosity. Fungi play a crucial role in this dance. Their mycelium threads penetrate soil and root cells, increasing the surface area for absorption. They act as intermediaries, connecting distant plants, helping them exchange nutrients, and even transferring signals. This mycorrhizal network is often called the forest's internet, a fitting metaphor for a system that carries information without words, connecting beings separated by soil and time. Research has shown that older, larger trees often act as hubs within this network, supporting younger saplings by sharing resources. In times of drought or stress, these hubs send extra water and nutrients to struggling neighbours, strengthening the forest as a whole. This cooperation challenges the idea of nature as solely competitive, revealing a more complex story of interdependence. Chemical signals travelling through the network alert trees to pests and environmental changes. When one tree is attacked, it can send distress signals, prompting others to ramp up their own defences. This warning system reduces damage and increases survival chances, a form of communal care written in molecules and transmitted through roots and fungi. Water too moves through this network, distributed to where it is most needed. During dry seasons, mycelium helps maintain moisture balance, carrying water to plants unable to reach it themselves. This shared resource management creates resilience, allowing forests to endure challenging conditions. It is a reminder that life thrives not by isolation, but through connection and support. The soil itself is alive, a living matrix of minerals, organic matter, microbes, and tiny animals. Roots interact constantly with this complex environment, breaking down nutrients and creating pathways for water and air. Fungi accelerate decomposition, recycling dead matter into nourishment for new growth. This cycle of decay and renewal is the heartbeat of the forest, a continuous flow sustaining life above and below ground. Time in this underground world is measured differently. Changes happen slowly, growth is gradual. Yet the impacts are profound. The network evolves with seasons, adapting to changes in climate, soil conditions, and plant communities. It is both ancient and ever new, a foundation for life that endures through upheaval and calm. This subterranean community offers a profound lesson for us. It shows how collaboration and communication can build resilience, how support networks create strength, how quiet acts of sharing nurture the health of the whole. It is a model not just for forests, but for all life. When we walk in the woods, we often miss this world beneath our feet. But it is there, vast, vibrant, vital. A whispering root system that connects trees, fungi, and soil in an ancient conversation. And in that conversation, we glimpse the deep bonds that make life possible. By tuning into this hidden network, we learn that life is more than what meets the eye, that beneath the surface connections pulse with energy and meaning, that even in silence life speaks, and that we too are part of this vast whispering web. Now, let us gently draw this story to a close, resting beneath the forest floor, where roots continue their quiet work, weaving life together in unseen ways. This network of roots and fungi is not just a means of survival, it is a form of memory, a keeper of stories, a living testament to connection across time and space. It reminds us that beneath the surface life is both fragile and resilient, ancient and ever-changing. Through the network, trees remember seasons of drought and flood, times of pestilence and peace. They store these memories not in minds but in chemical signals and structural changes, preparing themselves and their neighbours for the future. This living memory is a gift passed through roots and threads, a communal wisdom that guides growth and healing. When a tree falls, it does not die alone. Its roots remain entwined in the soil, feeding fungi that will nourish new life. Its absence echoes through the network, shifting connections and balances, making space for renewal. In this cycle of death and rebirth, the forest shows us the power of endings as beginnings, of loss as transformation. Humans too are part of this web. Our footsteps affect the soil, our choices shape the forests, our care or neglect can strengthen or weaken these ancient connections. By learning from the whispering roots, we can understand our place not as conquerors, but as participants in a vast living community. This underground world teaches patience. Growth is slow, communication subtle, but the effects last for centuries. It teaches humility, that not all important things are visible or loud, that silence can hold wisdom, that the smallest threads can carry the heaviest burdens. In our modern lives, separated from soil and shadow, the whispering roots remind us to listen, to connect, to share, to support one another as the forest supports its own. They invite us to be part of a story greater than ourselves, woven through roots, time and earth. So next time you walk in a forest, pause. Remember the world beneath your feet, the intricate, whispering web that holds the forest together. Know that life is not only what you see above, but what pulses unseen below, and in that knowing find a quiet peace. For beneath the soil, roots reach out, whispering their ancient song of connection, resilience, and hope. The forest breathes in silence, its roots whisper in darkness, and through them, life continues, strong, patient, and deeply alive. Long ago, before humans walked the earth, vast sheets of ice spread across continents, covering mountains, valleys, and palmy plains in a silent, frozen embrace. These glaciers moved slowly, almost imperceptibly, but their power shaped the land beneath, carving out lakes, sculpting cliffs, and carrying with them stories of time written in ice. This ancient breath of ice was not still. It flowed like a quiet river of cold, carrying with it memories of climate, life, and change. Beneath its surface, trapped bubbles of air preserved whispers of long-lost atmospheres, while layers of snow accumulated year after year, building a deep archive of Earth's history. Ice cores drilled today reveal secrets of temperatures, greenhouse gases, and events that shaped our planet's past. The breath of ancient ice reminds us that Earth is alive with memory, frozen yet flowing, soft yet strong, slow yet persistent. It teaches us that even the coldest silence holds stories, and that beneath stillness, life's pulse continues to beat, waiting patiently to be understood. Now imagine journeying deeper into the heart of the ice, where time is layered like the rings of a tree, but frozen, in crystal clear silence. Each layer is a page of Earth's story, preserved in snow, compacted over millennia. As scientists drill through these icy archives, they unlock ancient air trapped in tiny bubbles, breaths of the past that tell us about greenhouse gases, volcanic eruptions, and climate shifts long before humans recorded history. These frozen whispers reveal the rhythms of ice ages and warm periods, the rise and fall of sea levels, and the slow dance between Earth's atmosphere and oceans. The ice holds more than cold. It holds memory, a slow-moving witness to our planet's changes. It teaches us that even in stillness, life is recorded, that the past lives beneath our feet, and that understanding this breath of ice is key to understanding our future. As the ice melts and shifts in our changing world, it carries with it lessons and warnings. The breath of ancient ice is fading, revealing landscapes once hidden and stories once locked away. Glaciers retreat, rivers swell, and sea levels rise, echoes of a warming planet felt from poles to tropics. Yet in this transformation lies hope. The ice teaches resilience, cycles of renewal, and the deep connections between air, water, and life. It reminds us that Earth's memory is not static but alive, that the breath of ice and the pulse of life are intertwined. To listen to this frozen whisper is to understand our place in a vast, evolving story, a story written in cold and time, waiting for us to read with care and courage. Far beneath the surface, where sunlight fades into darkness and pressure grows heavy, the deep sea pulses with quiet life. It is a world of slow rhythms, vast mysteries, and creatures that glow in the dark or drift in silence. The ocean's depths hold stories older than the mountains, shaped by currents and time. Here, life moves differently, slow, deliberate, connected by subtle chemical signals and flickers of light. In this silent realm, every pulse is a breath, every glow a message. The deep sea teaches us about endurance, adaptation, and the hidden connections that sustain life when all seems still. It reminds us that even in the darkest places, there is movement and meaning, a quiet pulse that carries the heartbeat of the living world. Now imagine drifting deeper into the silent vastness of the deep ocean, where pressure mounts and light disappears entirely. Here life has adapted in astonishing ways. Bioluminescent creatures cast gentle glows that pierce the dark, using light to attract, confuse, or communicate. The seafloor is dotted with strange forms, from towering tube worms near hydrothermal vents to ghostly jellyfish drifting in slow motion. Chemical signals travel through the water, linking creatures in a web of unseen communication. This world pulses softly, a slow rhythm of birth, feeding, and survival that humbles us with its resilience. It reveals a realm where silence is not emptiness, but a different kind of presence, a place where life persists against all odds, and the pulse of the ocean beats steady beneath the waves. As we rise from the deep, the ocean's quiet pulse reminds us of the unseen forces that sustain life on Earth. The deep sea, though distant and dark, connects with the surface through currents and nutrient cycles and the slow fall of organic matter that feeds creatures below. It teaches patience and persistence, showing how life endures where conditions seem harsh and unforgiving. This hidden pulse is a reminder that beneath still waters lies a world of motion, mystery, and meaning. By listening to the deep sea's silent rhythm, we learn to appreciate the delicate balance of our planet and the quiet strength found in even the most shadowed places.